fact, I'm raising some quail right now, hatching from eggs.
Okay.
And they're really cute, fuzzy things.
They are adorable.
The eggs, and I plan on eating them too.
I would care that they were eating another human.
Well, did they have to kill the human?
What's that?
Did they have to kill the human first? I mean,
Because think about it, they didn't do anything to you, right? They don't deserve to die, right?
Does anybody?
No, no.
We're all gonna die.
Right, but well,
Especially you out here with the dog.
yes.
Today.
Yeah.
So, I can see why you wouldn't want to eat dog, but why would you? Like, if somebody else wants to, like, why do you care? I'm just curious.
Oh, with
Like,
the dog mate. Yeah. I guess like in the same sense that like if there was someone who wanted to like eat another human, like even if I didn't know that human, I would care that they were eating another human.
Well, did they have to kill the human?
What's that?
Did they have to kill the human first? I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
it's different if we kill people, but.
Yeah, I suppose if we like kind of take the same scenario and just apply it to humans. I'll make it like the human scenario for like what we do to pigs, right? So.
But why would you take that? Why would you take that jump? Like, why would you go there? What?
Well, I guess there's another question is like, why wouldn't you, right? So like, I guess like if a dog was walking down the street, right?
Yeah.
And I just run up and I kick the dog. Most people would think something wrong had happened there, right? I assume you would think that something bad had happened.
With you, not with you. Like,
But
why would you want to kick the dog?
Well, that's one part of it, right? But did something bad happen for the dog, from the dog's perspective?
Yeah, it felt pain, but
Yeah.
Well, the
So
thing
exactly.
is, what's wrong with you that you would go up and kick a dog?
I think that's a different question. So like if, let's say a tree branch fell on a dog, right?
Right.
That dog would, something bad would still have happened to the dog, whether an agent came in and hurt them or not.
Right.
So the dog has their own subjective experience, right? They can feel pain, they can feel pleasure. Like have you ever had a dog in your home?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure like your dog got excited when you got home, right?
Yeah.
And was your dog ever scared of anything?
Yeah.
What were they scared of? I always like to hear what dogs are scared. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Everyone says that. Everyone's like they are scared of thunder. And I know some people get dogs like thunder vests, right? And what I think that's a recognition of is that they are having a subjective experience. They're not a rock. They're not a toaster. There is someone home there that's the subject of a life. And so when we do things to like prevent our dogs from being scared, or we do things to make them happy, we're recognizing that there's inherent value in their experience. And so when we farm these animals, we are consigning them to lives of misery and early deaths. Imagine if we had dogs and like we force bred them into existence, because that's the first thing. These animals don't get to choose when they procreate, copulate, whatever. For instance, like with pigs, we will chop off the male's testicles. We actually cut slits in them and then rip their testicles out. That happens at every level of farming. Most local homesteady farms up into your big factory farms, right? Mm-hmm. Because we say like, you don't get to produce when you want to reproduce. We tell you when to reproduce. Mm-hmm. It also makes like the pig's flesh taste weird. And so that, like before we even get to any of the like, we keep them in cages, we cut off their tails, their teeth. Before we even get to that, just at the level of the breeding, right? The breeding is already horrendous, what we do to them like sexually.
But is there any kind of level, like to eat any animal, like if it didn't have that kind of, that.
Yeah.
But if you had a free-range pig, and you killed it and ate it, is that still the same thing, or are you just trying to get better conditions?
No, I'm definitely not just trying to get better conditions. I always want to be very clear about that. Obviously, if there's a being that has a terrible life versus a being that has a nice life, I'd always prefer the being to have a nice life. There's no doubt there. The thing I just will like highlight is that essentially none of them really have good lives, and we do terrible stuff to all of them, even like the smallest local farm. So the first thing is that it's sort of a practical impossibility, especially in any sort of scale. But beyond that, even if we could, right, we imagine we have this perfect life, we still kill these animals, right? We take the one thing they have, right? Their subjective experience of life. And like, do you know, for instance, like how long pigs can like live?
Probably live pretty long.
Pretty long time,
20 years or something?
I want to say it's 8 to 15 years, yeah.
Okay.
And do you know when we typically kill a pig?
Probably pretty young, yeah.
Like 6 months. So essentially when they're like,
Is that really true?
Yeah.
Because I've seen some huge pigs, and I don't
Yeah,
they get that big.
Do you know why they grow so big, right? They grow so big because
But so if somebody hunted an animal, like you say they like a deer, they lived a good life, but you would still be opposed because somebody forced their will upon them and killed them.
I think all these things, like there's a threshold of like, is this a moral infraction I think is worth talking about? And all of them is yes. But of course there's like worse and better within that. We can talk about the suffering and the experience, which is important, but I think that those are symptoms of a deeper sort of root cause or mindset. And that mindset is that we view these animals as something, not someone. We objectify and commodify them.
So you view them as someone? Like
I view them as someone. Not equal to a person, but I view them as someone. In the same way that like
why not equal to a person? I'm just
yeah.
Where do you draw, like how do you draw the line?
So, well, I think they're different than people in like many ways, right? They have like different types of experiences. They have different levels of intelligence.
Less rights? I don't use the word rights.
No, rights is a great word. I don't think they should have less rights. I think that we should apply as many applicable rights to animals.
You can't even give people equal rights.
Well, we should though. We should though. We should, right? And so, like, yeah, I think that any sentient being deserves rights. Deserves some basic rights. Now, like, maybe at some point there will be some things where, like, obviously, like, a pig doesn't have the right to vote, like, because what would that even mean? You know what I mean? But I do think they have the most basic rights, which is the right not to be exploited, the right not to be killed against their will, the right to, like not even necessarily a good life. Like, I'm not talking about we go out and find every animal and give them a good life. I'm just saying, let's not exploit them, commodify them, farm them, and throw them in gas chambers, you know?
So to take the extreme, like an insect or a bug,
yeah.
You assign the same rights to that as a dog or a pig, or
I think
like as far as more that deviate from a human being, they have less rights, or like.
No, I don't.
How does that work? Like,
I don't know that the deviation from the human being is the thing that would change the way I think about them. Again, like, it's slippery when we say like this individual deserves less rights, but I think you can think about them different in moral terms. And what I would tag it to again is what I think we ultimately all care about, which is sentience, which is like the fact. Sentience. Okay, so the ability to deploy positive and negatively valenced experiential states. So we want to put a lot of words in it, which is basically to say like well-being and suffering in some manner. Could be emotions, could be physical sensations, could be like some animals can have sensations that we don't even really totally understand. Like they can detect UV light or electromagnetic waves, you know. And so there's even beyond what we can, like if there was an alien species, right, they may be able to experience things beyond us, but they'd still be sentient, you know.
I took this online course once, what a plant knows.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is there's this distinction between intelligence and sentience.
Yeah. But it is
yeah,
like,
it's crazy. Wow. Yeah, you eat eggs, milk, pigs, all the stuff that most people,
In fact, I'm raising some quail right now. I hatch them from eggs.
Okay.
And they're really cute, fuzzy things.
They are adorable.
Eat the eggs, and I plan on eating them too. But
I guess what would
thank you for your time. I was just curious.
Yeah. Like, well, I guess what would stop you from like ceasing to kind of purchase those products or even eat those quails? Like, because you could just raise the quails and just have the quails. They could just be your friends, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Right now, it's pretty tempting because they're like a week old and they're
Because think about it, they didn't do anything to you, right? They don't deserve to die, right?
Does anybody?
No.
We're all going to die.
Right, but that wouldn't make it okay for me to like kill someone.
Absolutely.
Right? Because like that person walking by, she's going to die. But if I went up and killed her, we'd have a problem with it, right? So
Absolutely.
Those quails are going to die, but I don't still think that makes it okay for like me or you to murder them, basically.
I consider an animal not the same as a person.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either.
Well, kicking the dog thing, you got to go to the guy with what's wrong with you. Why are you kicking the dog?
But you would think that was wrong, right? For the dog themselves.
It's not for the person. I mean, the dog.
But
the dog's going to feel pain, if it was my dog, but I don't. But if it's a problem with a person, like why are you kicking the dog? Like why?
But then why was I kicking a rock? Like if I kicked a rock and if there's nothing there wrong from the point of view of the dog, then what's wrong with kicking a rock or a dog?
Rock to be something wrong with it too. But it's that idea like you want to inflict pain or you.
But why would that even be bad though? If pain doesn't mean anything to the dog, if it doesn't actually feel pain or feel bad or there's nothing bad that happens to the dog, what would it matter if you kicked them?
Well, they do feel pain.
Well, exactly. So there's something that's bad for the dog, right? From their perspective. That's what I'm getting at. There's something bad from the dog's perspective.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right?
It's good talking to you. I don't want to take too much more of your time. Actually, I'm on the clock. I got to get moving.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. This is what I ask people, is to consider this from the victim's perspective, right? If there was someone like farming you, or someone like kicked you randomly or whatever, would you accept any of these justifications?
Yeah, I see a distinction between people and other.
And again, so do I. I just want to be very clear. I do see a distinction. Like different levels of intelligence, different levels of sensation.
I see. Not just a distinction in levels of intelligence and obvious form and all, but distinction in, I guess, rights. I guess I would put it that way. Like, I think,
I guess, I mean,
if I want to catch a fish and eat it, which I don't do because I don't like fish, but nothing wrong. Or an animal, as long as it wasn't somebody else's animal, I would.
What is the quality of the animal that makes it okay, though? Like, because you're kind of saying we're different morally. You're saying I consider them different. Like, do you think that's something that
they're not a human, not like a species, not like a dog can't kill a cross species, but they're not human. They're
okay.
I look at them as they're like fair game.
Okay, so it's sort of like
if we abuse them, there's something wrong with you. But and again, I wouldn't defend a lot of that farming or how they breed things that can't even function and stand up because they get bigger faster. That's weird. But as far as killing something and eating it, I think that's a human thing that's fine to do.
So the fact that they're not human is kind of what makes it okay.
Yeah.
So then I guess if we let's say we found an island and it was full of Neanderthals, right? They're not Homo sapiens. Would it be okay to do the same things we do to animals to them because they're not human?
There isn't a an island of Neanderthals, and.
But would you be okay with that if there was? I guess, because it would seem
I think they're humans because when did the DNA test, my wife's side of the family came back with her father with a note like you have a higher than normal Neanderthal DNA. But I kind of think they're humans. Like we segregate them out. But
what about this? Like, do you watch like sci-fi or fantasy movies at all?
Nah, not really.
Okay, you know that there's like in these fantasy there's aliens, right? There's aliens, there's elves, there's dwarves, right? And when people watch these movies, sometimes the dwarves or aliens will die, they'll get hurt, and people feel bad for them. They say like that's like, and I assume like if you're watching the movie, right? But like they're not humans.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for animals too,
But why? Why?
Well, it's not always logical, but
I think it is logical. I think it's perfectly logical.
When I was raising the quail, one of the quail came out, the last one that was born, he had a hook and he was walking like this, and like, what are we gonna do with him? And my kids, So anyway, to make a long story short, I left him in the incubator alone. I took him out and I straightened it. Every couple hours, I was off that. Every couple hours, I would straighten his leg out. It only took over 24 hours, and he was fine and walking around. Like, wow, I helped that little guy out.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You were recognizing
that was fun and enjoyable. Like, it was surprising. But it's not going to stop me from eating. I want to eat him, and I always pick him up now, and I make sure he gets the food.
I think you said something that was interesting. There's two things you said earlier. You referred to a fish, and you said if I want to catch it. But you were just talking about your quail, and you said, he's like a cute little guy, right? So the fish was an object, but your quail,
make that jump. That's not logical.
No, I think the other way is the illogical. I think the fact that we jumped the other. Think about this, right? Do you think you've been culturally influenced to think of animals as objects?
Yeah, but the other way too, because we tend to give them human thoughts and characteristics and. As things go through my mind, like he's thinking that, he's not thinking that, he's a bird,
Yeah. But the thing is that's interesting is like when you look at research into like animal intelligence, it basically only goes in one direction. We always think that animals can do less, and every new piece of evidence that comes out, they can actually do more. But it never goes in the other direction where we're like, wow, we thought they were doing X, Y, Z, but they really weren't. The evidence is very much in the other direction, both as far as sentience and sapience.
Did you ever? I kept bees for a while too. And oh my word, you read this stuff.
These are very smart.
It is unbelievable, unbelievable. And I read this thing and think, gee, I feel kind of dumb,
Yeah. Oh, they do insane stuff, especially as a colony too. There's like some hive mind stuff.
Amazing things.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of other examples too. It's like, wow.
Yeah. But that's sort of to answer your initial question, right? I just see. So there's this concept of moral agents and moral patients, and a moral agent is someone who can deploy some sort of like decision making that's in a moral context, like us, like you and me. Like if I go up and punch that guy, you'd be like, wow, that was a bad thing for you to do as a moral agent. But then there's also moral patients. So we're also moral patients because what happens to us matters. So a human is like a moral agent and a moral patient. Animals are more like moral patients but not moral agents. In the same like think about a baby, right? If you were sitting here and you walked by and the baby punched you in the leg for some reason, right? Yeah. Like let's say a baby punched me in the leg and then I punched the baby back. no one would think me punching the baby was a good thing. And it's because we recognize, while the baby doesn't have moral agency, they do have moral patiency. Because it matters what happens to that baby, but they don't know that the concept of punching or anything like that. Animals, I think, are the same way. Their moral patience, even though they can't deploy this like moral agency, they are still moral patients because they are sentient. They have desires. They have wants. They don't want to die, So, and of course they can feel pain, just like how I think you nursing that bird back to health, to me, is just such an obvious manifestation of like you recognizing that this is that this is a subject of a life. And that there's at least an ethical component to it.
And I was thinking, I wish I could do this to people.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
It's because they're so young and it grows so fast. But wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and I did it to people anyway. I guess our minds we cross things up, and that's fine. But I think I'd still think it's better to separate. There's people and there's everything else.
Well, and the thing is, we just don't need to eat them, though, right? Like, why even take the risk? Like maybe both of us could be wrong here, right? It's possible that you and I, either one of us, could be wrong. But I think on your side, the risk is so great. Like, for instance, do you know how many animals a year we kill? Give me a guess. I always like to have people guess.
For the whole world?
For the whole world, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I couldn't even. Yeah. I couldn't even venture. Yeah.
So it's about 50 to 100 billion land animals a year. So the total number of humans that have ever existed is about 100 billion, 120 billion. And then marine animals, it's in the trillions. Let's just say there's a 50-50 chance that the 50 chance you're right, 50 chance I'm right. The risk that
what is the risk? Tell me what the risk is.
The risk is 100 billion land animals. Like the same number of animals die in 1 year as humans that have ever existed. There's huge environmental costs, there's pandemic risks, there's antibiotic risks, and there's health risks, right? And the most important risk, of course, is what we're doing to the animals. But on the other side of that, we can just eat plants and fungi. And we don't incur any of those risks, right? Or we lessen all those risks. We lessen the environmental impact. We lessen the chance of pandemics. We lessen antibiotic resistance concerns. Probably better for your health, depending on how you eat a plant-based diet. You can eat a healthy or unhealthy, but likely a healthier diet. And of course, those animals aren't being exploited and killed for us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we look at things differently.
All right. Well, it was good talking to you. Yeah, I mean, that was a long talk, so think it over, mull it over, sleep on it a few nights, think about it.
Take care.
Yeah, then.
And if you want to help me make this my full-time career, check out the Patreon in the description. And shout out to Ryan O'Neill, Tom Eisenbeiss, NetBase News, Monstar, David Yastrzemski, and Maxwell Edison.